Hello, everyone. This is a beautiful Saturday evening here, and I hope you had a wonderful personal time, family time, or working time today. This is Expose. If you are just joining us, where we beam the light on Christ. For the past few weeks, we've been looking at the prodigal father, and with me today is.
My name is Peter Adewale. Welcome to Expose.
Oh, thank you, Peter. While I'm moderating and asking the questions, I would like Peter to summarize what this Prodigal Father series is for those who had missed out and is wondering what are we doing.
Yeah, I mean, on Expose, for the past few weeks, if you're joining us for the very first time today, and if you've been with us for quite some time, what we've been talking about is looking at the heart of the Father and looking at how Jesus begins to show us through the scriptures the two types of ways people choose to live their lives, or as you may say, the two types of humanity that we have on the planet. And Jesus shows us this radically using the story which has been called the story of the prodigal son, but we just like to title it the prodigal father. And you will understand why as we go on this journey.
Okay, for how long do we have to be on this prodigal
Well,
series?
well, as the Lord will help us, because we need to see what the Holy Spirit wants us to see in this story. And let me just say this. We're not just theoretically investigating. We're not just trying to look into this story just because we want to fill our brains and think that we have so much knowledge and information. That's not the goal. The reason for this discourse on the prodigal father is because we want to see, we want to know, we want to understand the type of ways people choose to live life and make meaning out of life, and to take on the warning of Jesus so that we can fulfill our destiny and become what God wants us to be. So that's the reason. So our focus is, by the time you join us on this journey, you will take something away that will make a big difference in your life.
Yeah, for the past 2 weeks, I think we're on the younger brother.
Yes. Yeah,
Are we done yet?
Well, we're not really done.
I mean, on the younger brother.
No, we're not really done with the younger brother. I mean, if you were with us last Saturday, we talked about the fact that how far he's gone and how far he began to eat with the pigs and in the pen and all that. So today we have a different focus on the younger brother.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, just for those who are joining us today, if you look at the book of Luke, chapter 15, specifically, we did stop around verse 16. That's where we stopped, verse 16. But today we'll be looking at something. We'll be talking about what was the reason, what is the motivation, why would someone decide to live life as a younger brother? Why would he want his father dead? Because we did say the fact that if he wanted his inheritance when his father was alive, to him is as good as the father being dead. Why would he? What was the push? Why would humanity want to be this kind of person? That's what we're looking at today.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. There's one thing I will want us to look at, which is very important. Jesus, in book of John chapter 4, I wanted to have a look at this. John chapter 4. Don't forget, the younger brother depicts self-expression. It depicts self-discovery.
Self-realization.
Self-realization. It means I want to find what works for me. What you call individualism in the Western culture. Every culture has something that makes them tick. In the Western culture, they think you're very significant, you're very important if you can find a cause for your own life. You can chart a course for your life. You can become a nonconformist, an individual. That's the point. What drives people to such a mentality about life? That's what we're looking at. Now, John chapter 4, that's something we'll have a look at. And see, this is an encounter that Jesus had with the woman by the well. Okay. And this is a very popular story. But I wouldn't call this a story. This was an actual event that actually took place. Now, I want you to look at John chapter 4, from verse 7. There comes a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus said, "Give me to drink." And the woman said, the woman of Samaria, "How is it that you, being a Jew, ask drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans." And Jesus answered and said, if you know the gift of God, who it is that says to you, give me to drink, you would have asked me, and I would have given you living waters. And then look at verse 13. And Jesus said unto the woman, if anybody drinks of this water, he shall thirst again. But whosoever drinks of the water I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water I shall give him shall be in him a well of water, springing up to life eternal. If you look at that, now if you go right on to verse 16, Jesus said to the woman, go and call your husband. Jesus was engaging this woman in something very strange. Jesus said to the woman, go and give me to drink, because she came to drink. She came to what? Draw water. She wanted a satisfaction. She wanted to feel a thirst. So she came to the well to draw water, to feel a thirst. And Jesus told this woman, if you know who I am, you would have asked me to give you living waters. Now, the woman thought this was a discourse about H2O, about water. But Jesus says something much more deeper than that. How did I know that? Because Jesus then told the woman, go and call your husband. And what did she say? She answered Jesus in verse 17. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said, well, you're right for saying you have no husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and the one that you have now is not even your husband. In that you've actually spoken the truth. The woman said unto him, I perceive you a prophet. Now, what the next thing Jesus said? Verse 20, the woman said, our fathers worship in this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus said unto her, woman, believe in me, the hour comes, and now is, that no one will worship in this mountain or that mountain, but they will worship what? The Father. What are we talking about? In simple terms, Jesus begins to tell us that in every human, in every person, there's a thirst. There is this void. There is this thing that needs to be filled. And people would always need to fill this void, try to make a meaning out of life. So there was nothing wrong with the younger brother in the text that he wanted to fill a void. He wanted to make meaning out of his life. That's why he said, well, give what you have to give to me now, my Father. Why? Because I need to express. I need to go out and find out what works for me. So it wasn't the desire that the younger brother has that was the problem. It was the way he was going to satisfy that desire. So that's why Jesus told the woman by the well. Jesus said, give me to drink. I know you have a thirst. I know you have something deep down that needs to be filled. And so there's nothing wrong with having that desire. In fact, it's that desire that drives us to pursue the right path of destiny. Now, there's something I want to tell you. There's something I want to read out for our viewers who are looking. Please, I want to read out something to you. Now, there's someone, his name is David Wallace. David Wallace was a popular novelist in America. He's dead now. And is well known. He was a professor of English in California. Now, listen to what he said. I wanted to listen to this. He says, because here's something else that is weird but true. In the day-to-day trenches of adult life, there's actually no such thing as atheism. There is no such thing as not worshiping. Everybody worships. Now, it says, everybody has to look for that thing to satisfy that desire. So what we're simply saying on expose today is, the desire of the younger brother to find satisfaction or meaning out of life was legitimate. That's the point. It's legitimate for someone to say, what is the point of my life? I need this. My life should count. My life has meaning. My life cannot just be just anyhow. There's got to be a reason why I'm here. I need to find what works for me. Jesus is saying to us through that parable, there's that desire in that young man. And Jesus said in John chapter 4 to this woman, I know you got a thirst. I know you need to drink water. And you see, for this woman in John chapter 4, we know the way she actually had to go out to fill that desire. She was having lots and lots of husbands. In fact, she's already had 5 legitimate husbands, and number 6 was illegitimate. So everyone always has that propensity to feel that desire. So look at, I'm still on David Wallace's quote. He said, what? The next thing he says is, there is no such thing as not worshiping. There's no such thing as that. He said everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship. How do we satisfy that desire? That's the only choice we have. So, please, the problem with the younger brother is not just the fact that he had a desire. The reason why he has been put in a negative light through history, the younger brother, was because of the way he chose to fulfill that desire. So there was nothing wrong with the desire of the younger brother. There was nothing wrong with the hunger that he had. Nothing wrong with the thirst that he had. Everything was wrong with how the younger brother chose to satisfy that desire in the story of the prodigal son. So that's it. Now, I'm on David Wallace. David Wallace said, and the compelling that he says, the only choice we get is what to worship. That's the only choice we have. So if anybody tells you, I don't worship anything, I don't look to anything for satisfaction, tell him he's one big joker. If it's not true, Jesus wouldn't tell the woman, because the woman was thirsty. Jesus knew it was legitimate. He had a thirst. And then it says, and the compelling reason, I'm still back to the quote of David Wallace, and the compelling reason for maybe choosing some sort of God or spiritual type of thing to worship, be Jesus Christ or Allah, or be Yahweh or the mother goddess or the Four Noble Truths or some set of ethical principles, is that pretty much anything else you worship will eat you alive. Anything else you worship will eat you alive. Now, if you were with us last Saturday, you saw what happened to this young man. What was his worshiping? He was saying, well, you know what? I'm going to take this money, I'm going to take my inheritance and make sure that I fulfill my desires. What happened? After some time, what happened? It began to be in what? In want. It began to be in want. It says, whatever pathway you choose to follow to satisfy your desire for meaning in life, that pathway will consume you. So it means you got to choose then which pathway you want to follow to satisfy that desire.
Yeah, I was actually waiting for while you went to the Samaritans or the woman of Samaria.
Yeah.
I want to see the correlation with the.
Well, the correlation we actually did there with the younger brother was the story of the Samaritan woman. If you notice, Jesus never did condemn the fact that she was thirsty. Jesus recognized that she was in thirst. She had a thirstiness. She wanted something satisfied deep within her soul. And Jesus never did talk about, why are you thirsty? All Jesus said was, if you know who was talking to you, you would ask me and I will give you living waters. So the only problem is when people have this desire and this pursuit for meaning in life, they look for any other source to satisfy. So Jesus told the woman, if you ask me, I would give you rivers of living waters. So the younger brother had a legitimate desire for meaning in life. He had a legitimate void in him. But he chose to fulfill that desire. He chose to satisfy that void by a whole different way that you call individualism, which is what is in vogue in our current culture.
Okay, so I'm actually waiting to get to the older brother to see, for you to identify that need. Does he have that same need that the younger brother is? Maybe it's not for now. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually waiting. Yeah. Because if you say it's not peculiar, it's what everybody has: the need, the desire, the taste.
It is.
So the elder brother to everybody has.
It's a general thing about humanity. That's why if there was something wrong with having thirst and desire, in this John chapter 4, Jesus will have told that woman, because it seems like Jesus was, in psychiatry. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I think people who do psychiatry tell us that one way to help people who have mental issues is if they're hallucinating or they are seeing something, you don't want to encourage them in their hallucination. If you do, it will have to help them out of the hallucination. If they're seeing something and you say, well, you don't encourage them in the hallucination, you tend to pull them out of it. If this woman was in actual thirst and Jesus was telling this woman that, ask me and I'll give you what? Living waters, then it means if it was wrong for this woman to be thirsty, Jesus wouldn't go on to talk about fulfilling the what? The thirst. He will have said, well, you're wrong for being thirsty. Why will you have a thirst in your life? Jesus will have condemned the
people
thirst.
Should not deny and condemn people for their thirst.
Jesus' discourse with the woman of Samaria is a constant reminder to humanity that we've got a thirst that needs to be satiated. That's just the fact. Jesus didn't have to talk her out of the thirst. Jesus didn't have to convince the woman, why are you thirsty? What's your problem? Why do you have such a desire?
So how did he get it wrong, the younger brother?
Well, well, if you said your younger brother got it wrong, like I said to you,
Why we become infamous
well,
in history?
the fact is, younger brother believed that whatever thirst he had, whatever desire he had, the father couldn't fulfill it. That's why he wished the father dead. The younger brother thought there was no way the father wasn't enough to satisfy whatever it was. That's why I said, you know what, get out, my father. I mean, I just wish you dead. And then, you see, if you're looking at us today and you believe legitimately that you don't have such a situation, you think, well, you know what, there is nothing I look to for meaning. I just live my life every day. I mean, I'm not that kind of religious person. I'm not that kind of person who argues about God, not God. I'm just a normal person. I'm not concerned with things like this. Let me tell you something. If you want to know if someone is intoxicated by anything, the one thing they try to do to check, for example, if I meet two people and they both took 10 bottles of beer or alcohol, it's hard to tell which of them is actually a drunkard by just seeing how many bottles they're taking. It's very hard to tell. One easy way to tell who a drunkard is take away the bottle for a long time. Prevent them from taking the alcohol for a very long time. And look at the person that goes crazy. Look at the person who struggles to survive. Look at the person who begins to shake. Look at the person who develops a problem just because you've taken away the alcohol. That's the drunkard. That's the person who's intoxicated with it. Now, it's the same way. You look at your life. Look at things around your life. Look at money. Look at family. Look at education. Look at the things around you. Is there something that if it's taken away from you, you will not just become sad, but life becomes impossible to live? That's the very thing that you've hung the meaning and definition of your life on. Look at this woman. Jesus, and it's different from person to person. You know, the discourse of the John chapter 4 woman started about the issue of water and well and drinking. But you see, it moved on from there to husbands. So Jesus was saying, you know what, woman? You have a legitimate thirst. But here's the problem with the woman of John chapter 4. You are going about trying to fulfill the thirst using men. For the younger brother, he also had a legitimate thirst, but was going to go about to fill the thirst on the platform of individualism. Everybody chooses one thing or the other to cover up that thirst. And that's the reason why the younger brother chose the pathway he chose. You have to just look for something to cover up that need, that thirst. And that's it.
So in conclusion, if there's anything that you want people to take out of this today, what would that be?
Well, the conclusion, that we want you to take out of this discourse today is to understand the fact that just as we have in Luke 15, the parable of the prodigal son or prodigal father, in John chapter 4, as we have seen in the parable of the Samaritan woman, one thing stands out. There is a legitimate thirst in humans to make a meaning out of life. A thirst that says, you know what, I think I've got to, we'll always look for something to define us. We always look for something. There's that need in us, and that need is legitimate. It's a correct need. There's nothing wrong with that need. Don't let anybody tell you, why do you have such a kind of drive? It's legitimate. But the problem is, how do we go about satisfying the need? And that's where the whole problem is. And Jesus said to that woman in John 4, I'm able to fill that need. Yeah. So that's what we wanted to take out today. It's legitimate. It's an accurate need. It's expected. It's human to have that need.
But there's a way to go about it.
That's going about satisfying the need is what defines who the younger brother was. That's where the whole problem started from.
So, viewers, if this expose and this series bless you in any way, we would like you to share it with others. And so we await your comments, questions, and so we can elongate this discussion. We can talk through the chat. So thank you today. So we hope to see you same time next week. I want to say bye.
Okay, bye for joining us today. Have a wonderful time. God bless you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.